Have you ever felt that there is a level of power inside you that you haven't fully accessed yet? A kind of inner fire that awakens only when you stop giving your energy to distractions, impulses, or temporary desires. Some people discover this truth early, others only when life forces them to look inward. But a rare group, the chosen ones, experience something different. The moment they learn to retain their sexual energy, a quiet transformation begins. Their mind becomes sharper. Their intuition becomes louder. Their presence grows stronger in ways that most people can't explain. This is not about denial or suppression. It's about direction. Sexual energy is the most primal force of the human psyche, and when it is channeled instead of wasted, something extraordinary happens. Confidence shifts, focus returns, synchronicities appear, and a feeling of inner purpose starts to guide every step. In this video, you'll discover 10 powerful changes that only these rare individuals experience. Changes that feel spiritual, magnetic, and almost miraculous to anyone who witnesses them. Once you understand them, you'll see your own energy and the person you could become in a completely different way. 1. The awakening of inner clarity. It usually begins quietly, long before any external change becomes visible. A chosen one feels a subtle shift inside, as if a deeper part of their psyche, one that had been ignored, suppressed, or forgotten, finally wakes up. They can't explain it, but they sense an inner light turning on. Their mind becomes calmer, sharper, and more aware of things they never noticed before. This is exactly what Carl Jung described as the return of psychic energy. When sexual energy is constantly dispersed into impulses and momentary desires, the mind becomes noisy and unfocused. But when that same energy is retained, it starts to flow inward. It reorganizes thoughts, strengthens intuition, and brings unconscious material to the surface. Suddenly, the chosen one begins to see patterns in their life with surprising clarity. They finally understand why they felt lost, drained, or disconnected for so long. At first, this clarity appears in small flashes, a realization about a relationship, a sudden insight about a habit, or a quiet sense that certain things no longer belong in their life. They start noticing what strengthens them, what weakens them, and what their path is trying to show them. It feels like stepping out of fog into clean air. This inner clarity isn't forced. It emerges naturally because the mind is no longer leaking its most powerful energy. Jung believed that sexual energy, libido, is not only physical, but the core fuel of creativity, direction, and purpose. When it's retained, the psyche finally has something to build with. Thoughts fall into place. Intuition becomes louder. Decisions that once felt heavy start to feel obvious. The chosen one begins to feel more aligned with themselves. They trust their instincts again, not because of external signs, but because their internal world has become organized. They are no longer fighting their thoughts. They are listening to them with a new sense of calm and certainty. This is why the first miracle is clarity. A clarity that feels like a homecoming, like meeting a version of themselves that was always there, but buried under noise. They feel more awake, more grounded, and strangely more alive. And once this clarity appears, there is no going back. Something inside them refuses to return to the old scattered way of living. Because deep down, they know this truth. When your energy stops leaking outward, your soul finally has the strength to speak. 2. A surge of magnetic presence. One of the first things chosen ones notice after retaining their sexual energy is a shift in how people respond to them. Nothing about their appearance may have changed, but the atmosphere around them feels different. People make longer eye contact. Strangers glance twice. Conversations open effortlessly. There is a subtle pull in their presence, as if something invisible is radiating from them. Carl Jung often said that the psyche communicates through energy before words, and this is exactly what begins to unfold. When someone stops scattering their sexual energy, that force doesn't disappear, it transforms. It becomes confidence, groundedness, and a kind of inner stability that others can feel instinctively. Without saying a single word, the chosen one emits a signal. I am centered. I am present. I am alive. It's not arrogance. It's not trying to impress anyone. In fact, the chosen one usually isn't even aware of how magnetic they've become. They simply carry themselves differently. Their posture is more relaxed. Their eyes are clearer. Their movements have purpose. When they enter a room, people feel the shift without understanding why. This magnetic presence is the result of energy being redirected inward instead of outward. Jung saw libido as the life force of the psyche. When it flows freely inside, it strengthens the personality and gives it weight. People trust those who are energetically whole, even if they can't explain the reason. They sense integrity, coherence, and depth. And because most individuals walk through life drained and distracted, someone who is fully charged stands out immediately. This presence also changes the way the chosen one communicates. Their voice becomes calmer and more assured. Their words carry intention. They no longer rush to fill silence, because silence no longer feels awkward. Jung believed that when a person integrates their instincts, they naturally project authority, not dominance, but authenticity. People gravitate towards someone who is not at war with themselves. It is this quiet impact that feels like a miracle. Not because the chosen one tries to attract anyone, but because they no longer need to. Their energy speaks for them long before their mouth does. And in a world where most people feel invisible, exhausted, or emotionally diluted, someone who radiates centeredness becomes impossible to ignore. This magnetic presence isn't a performance, it is a consequence. It is what happens when the mind is clear, the energy is contained, and the psyche stands fully behind the person it belongs to. Soon, the chosen one realizes the truth. The world feels their energy long before it understands their words. 3. The reconnection with instinct. Another miracle the chosen ones experience is the sudden return of something they didn't even realize they had lost. Instinct. Not the impulsive kind that pushes people toward quick pleasure, but the deep, grounded intuition that guides a person toward the right path, the right people, and the right decisions. It's the kind of instinct that feels ancient, almost primal, like a compass that was buried under years of noise and finally finds its way back to the surface. Carl Jung taught that the unconscious communicates through symbols, impulses, and subtle impressions. Most people never hear these messages because their energy is scattered, their mind is overstimulated, and their focus is constantly hijacked by external demands. But when someone begins retaining their sexual energy, the communication between the conscious and unconscious strengthens. The inner world, once muted, becomes loud and clear. For the chosen one, this reconnection appears unexpectedly. They begin sensing things before they happen. They feel when a person cannot be trusted, even if that person acts friendly. They feel when a path is wrong, even if it looks perfect on paper. And they feel when something is right, even if it scares them. It's not paranoia, it's perception, a form of knowing that comes from within, not from logic alone. This instinct also reshapes their emotional world. They no longer chase what drains them. They no longer hold on to relationships out of fear. They no longer betray themselves to feel accepted. Their body reacts differently to situations that used to confuse them. They sense tension faster. They feel alignment quicker. Their intuition becomes a living signal that guides them minute by minute. Jung called this process integration, the moment when a person reconnects with the parts of themselves they had suppressed or ignored. Retaining sexual energy accelerates this because it gives the psyche the strength and vitality it needs to communicate. What once felt blurry becomes sharp. What once felt vague becomes certain. It's not that the chosen one suddenly becomes psychic. It's that they stop drowning out the messages their inner world had been sending all along. With their energy intact, their instincts function the way nature designed them to, protecting, guiding, strengthening. This reconnection feels like remembering something they always knew but forgot, a truth that was waiting to be rediscovered. And once it returns, the chosen one begins walking through life differently, not with fear, but with a quiet confidence that comes from knowing they are finally aligned with themselves. Because in the end, this is the real miracle. When your instincts wake up, life stops feeling random and starts feeling guided. 4. The rise of emotional discipline. One of the most surprising changes chosen ones experience after retaining their sexual energy is a new kind of emotional discipline, quiet, steady, and almost unshakable. It doesn't happen overnight, but the shift is undeniable. Moments that used to trigger them suddenly lose their power. Situations that once created anxiety now feel manageable, and instead of reacting from impulse, they begin responding from awareness. Carl Jung believed that a person becomes powerful when they stop being controlled by their unconscious impulses. Most people move through the world reacting to old wounds, cravings, fears, and unresolved patterns. But when someone retains their sexual energy, the psyche gains strength. It stops wasting fuel on impulses and begins stabilizing the emotional world from within. The chosen one starts noticing this change in everyday moments. A conversation that once would have irritated them now feels easy to navigate. A conflict that used to provoke anger now inspires clarity. They no longer interpret everything as a threat. They don't take things so personally. Their emotional life becomes less chaotic and more intentional. This discipline doesn't come from suppression, it comes from integration. Energy that once fueled distraction now fuels presence. Energy that once fed insecurity now feeds confidence. The chosen one becomes less reactive because their inner world is no longer fragile. They aren't easily knocked off balance because their center is strong. What Jung called self-possession begins to appear, not in a dramatic way, but in small, powerful shifts. They pause before reacting. They understand their feelings instead of drowning in them. They stop allowing other people's emotions to dictate their own. They make decisions based on clarity, not pressure. This emotional discipline feels like a miracle because it transforms relationships, conversations, and self-worth. The chosen one stops chasing validation. They stop giving energy to those who drain them. They stop fighting battles that don't matter. With their energy intact, they can finally see what deserves attention and what doesn't. And people notice, not because the chosen one becomes distant, but because they become centered. They don't collapse under stress. They don't react from fear. They navigate life with a calm strength that makes others trust them instinctively. This is the moment the chosen one realizes something powerful. The more control they gain over their energy, the more control they gain over their emotions, and nothing feels more liberating than that. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. 5. The transformation of willpower. There comes a moment when the chosen one realizes something they never expected. Their willpower has quietly evolved into a force they barely recognize. Tasks that once felt exhausting now feel simple. Habits that always defeated them begin to lose their grip. And instead of depending on motivation, they begin operating from something deeper and far more stable. Carl Jung believed that when a person redirects their libido, they redirect their life force. Most people spend this energy in small fragments, feeding impulses, distractions, and cravings. But when someone retains their sexual energy, that same force returns to them in a concentrated form. It becomes fuel for discipline, focus, and personal direction. The chosen one feels this transformation in the smallest decisions. They wake up earlier without forcing themselves. They finish tasks they used to avoid. They make healthier choices without debating them endlessly. The inner resistance that once drained them starts to fade. What takes its place is a steady drive that feels natural, almost effortless. This new willpower also reshapes how they pursue dreams and goals. Projects they abandoned years ago suddenly call them back. Skills they overlooked return with surprising clarity. They start moving toward their future instead of only imagining it. It is not a burst of motivation that fades overnight. It is a stable current that pushes them forward day after day. Jung described this shift as the emergence of the directed life. Instead of being pulled by unconscious desires, the chosen one begins living with intention. Their choices align with who they want to become. Their energy supports those choices, and their willpower finally feels like a tool they own, not a battle they constantly lose. This transformation often surprises the chosen one more than any other miracle. They look at themselves and realize they are no longer fighting against life. They are participating in it. They are building, they are growing, they are choosing with clarity instead of reacting out of habit. And as their willpower strengthens, something else becomes clear. They are becoming someone they always hoped they could be, someone who follows through, someone who stays consistent, someone who can trust their own decisions. The chosen one understands a powerful truth. When you stop draining your energy into impulses, you reclaim the ability to shape your own destiny. 6. The expansion of spiritual sensitivity. Something profound begins to happen when the chosen one retains their sexual energy. Their spiritual sensitivity increases in a way that feels both surprising and familiar, as if they are returning to a part of themselves they were born with but forgot along the way. Everyday experiences gain new layers of meaning. Quiet moments feel deeper. Ordinary situations reveal hidden symbolism. It is as if life starts speaking to them in a language they had not heard in years. Carl Jung believed that the psyche communicates through symbols, dreams, and subtle impressions. Most people move too quickly to perceive them, but when someone redirects their energy inward, the connection between consciousness and the unconscious becomes stronger. Dreams become more vivid, intuition becomes sharper, inner guidance becomes easier to recognize. The chosen one starts noticing synchronicities that feel too precise to dismiss. Meaningful coincidences follow them through the day. Thoughts they had in the morning show up again in conversations or signs around them. They sense when something is right or wrong without needing proof. Their inner world and outer world feel synchronized, almost orchestrated. This spiritual sensitivity is not about superstition or fantasy. It is the natural result of a quieter mind and a more unified psyche. When energy is no longer scattered, awareness expands. The chosen one becomes more present, more observant, more connected to the deeper currents of life. They begin to feel that their journey has direction, even when they cannot explain where it is leading. This sensitivity does not isolate them. It humbles them. It makes them more grateful. It helps them recognize patterns, lessons, and opportunities that others overlook. And with each new insight, they feel a growing sense of purpose, as if the universe is guiding them with gentle precision. The miracle is not that life changes. It is that they finally have the awareness to see what was always there. 7. The strengthening of personal boundaries. Another powerful transformation chosen ones experience is the sudden ability to create and maintain strong boundaries. This does not come from anger or defensiveness. It comes from self-respect. When their energy is intact, they begin to recognize their own value more clearly, and this changes how they allow others to treat them. Carl Jung believed that individuation requires separation from what weakens the self. When someone retains their sexual energy, they naturally become more protective of their inner world. They no longer tolerate relationships that drain them. They no longer participate in conversations that belittle them. They no longer sacrifice their well-being to keep others comfortable. This shift often surprises the people around them. Someone who once said yes to everything starts saying no with calm confidence. Someone who once accepted mistreatment begins walking away without guilt. Someone who once stayed silent now speaks with clarity and certainty. These boundaries do not make the chosen one distant. They make them healthy. Their emotional space becomes valuable. Their time becomes meaningful. Their peace becomes non-negotiable. They realize that giving access to their energy is a privilege, not an automatic obligation. The chosen one also becomes more selective with who they trust. They notice intentions faster. They recognize emotional manipulation sooner. They feel when someone has good energy or harmful energy. Their internal compass becomes sharp, preventing them from entering situations that used to hurt them. This strengthening of boundaries is a true miracle because it marks a turning point. The chosen one no longer lives in reaction. They no longer chase approval. They no longer accept roles that diminish them. They take ownership of their life, not by force, but by clarity. And with each boundary they set, something remarkable happens. They feel lighter, stronger, more whole. The world respects those who respect themselves, and the chosen one finally steps into that truth. 8. The liberation from old addictions. One of the most transformative miracles chosen ones experience is the gradual release from addictions they once believed were part of their identity. These addictions are not always substances. Sometimes they are emotional cycles, toxic connections, compulsive patterns, or habits that numb their inner truth. When the chosen one begins retaining their sexual energy, something inside them shifts. They no longer feel the same pull toward the things that kept them trapped. Carl Jung believed that addiction is often a substitute for genuine purpose. When a person lacks direction, meaning, or inner strength, the psyche searches for something to fill the emptiness. But when sexual energy returns inward, the emptiness begins to disappear. The chosen one feels fuller, more centered, more connected to themselves. They no longer need external stimulation to feel alive. This liberation does not happen dramatically. It arrives subtly, in the moments where they notice that the old urges are weaker, the craving to escape fades, the desire to self-sabotage loses its intensity. They begin choosing actions that honor their future instead of protecting their wounds. They start feeling proud of their discipline, not ashamed of their impulses. The chosen one also gains clarity about what truly controlled them. They realize that many of their past addictions were attempts to silence their inner voice. Now that the voice is clear, the distractions no longer work. Their mind feels cleaner. Their emotions become easier to understand. Their choices align with their values rather than their fears. Jung described this shift as the triumph of consciousness over compulsion. Instead of being dragged by old patterns, the chosen one begins leading their own life. They feel the return of self-respect. They feel the rise of inner strength. And with every toxic habit that fades, they reclaim a piece of themselves that had been lost. The miracle is not that addiction disappears overnight. The miracle is that the chosen one becomes stronger than the thing that once controlled them. Their energy becomes a shield, protecting them from the very patterns that once consumed them, and with each day of growth, they realize how powerful they truly are. 9. The attraction of purposeful opportunities. As the chosen one continues retaining their sexual energy, another miracle begins to reveal itself. Opportunities start appearing with unusual precision, almost as if life is rearranging itself to meet them halfway. They meet the right people at the right time. They receive invitations that align with their growth. Doors that were once closed begin to open effortlessly. It feels as if life is guiding them toward their purpose with gentle intention. Carl Jung believed that when the unconscious and conscious mind work together, the outer world reflects the inner world. This is why chosen ones often experience synchronicities during periods of high energy retention. Their clarity acts like a magnet. Their focus sharpens their direction. Their intuition leads them toward what is meant for them. At first, the chosen one dismisses these coincidences, but as they multiply, they realize something deeper is happening. They are no longer attracting chaos. They are attracting alignment. They are no longer repeating old cycles. They are stepping into a path that feels destined. These purposeful opportunities are not always grand or dramatic. Sometimes they come as a conversation that inspires a new decision. Sometimes they appear as a challenge that pushes them to grow. Sometimes they arrive quietly in the form of an idea that changes the course of their future. The chosen one begins trusting this flow. They sense which opportunities are aligned and which are distractions. They feel a clear difference between what feeds their spirit and what drains it. Their life becomes less accidental and more intentional. This attraction of aligned opportunities feels miraculous because it reveals a hidden truth. When a person is fragmented, life reflects fragmentation. But when a person becomes whole, life responds with coherence. Doors open, paths align, the right people appear. The chosen one begins walking through a world that feels designed for their evolution. This is the moment they understand the power of their energy. When they protect it, it protects them back. When they redirect it inward, life redirects itself around them. And with each new opportunity, the chosen one moves closer to the person they were meant to become. 10. The realization of their true identity. The final miracle chosen ones experience when they retain their sexual energy is something deeper than clarity, discipline, or opportunity. It is the quiet, powerful realization of who they truly are. Not the version shaped by fear, not the personality built to please others, not the identity created through insecurity or survival, but the self that existed before the world tried to silence it. Carl Jung believed that the greatest task of the human being is individuation, the process of becoming the person they were meant to be. Most people never reach this level of inner truth because their energy is scattered, their minds are overwhelmed, and their hearts are weighed down by unresolved patterns. But when the chosen one retains their sexual energy, everything begins to reorganize. Their psyche becomes stronger, their intuition becomes clearer, their purpose becomes louder. It begins with small recognitions. They realize the dreams that were truly theirs and not borrowed from others. They understand the difference between what they want and what they were conditioned to want. They see the people who walk toward them for the right reasons and the ones who walk toward them for the wrong ones. Their life becomes a mirror, reflecting their inner world, not their fears. With their energy intact, they no longer play roles that shrink them. They speak with authenticity. They make choices aligned with their values. They allow themselves to grow, evolve, and transform without guilt. They stop apologizing for their strength. They stop hiding their gifts. They stop minimizing their potential to fit into spaces that were never designed for them. And then something even more profound happens. The chosen one begins to feel connected to a path that feels larger than their personal desires. They feel guided by a sense of destiny, as if each step is part of a bigger design. Their presence becomes grounded, their vision becomes clear, their spirit feels anchored in something timeless. Jung said that when a person becomes whole, they align with their deeper nature. They stop living from the surface and begin living from the soul. This is the final miracle. The chosen one no longer seeks external validation because their identity is rooted within. They no longer fear the unknown because they trust their inner compass. They no longer feel lost because they finally recognize the person they were always meant to become. In the end, retaining sexual energy does something extraordinary. It reunites the chosen one with their essence, their purpose, and their truth. And once they meet this version of themselves, they cannot go back.